All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Z Ice Show with your host, Z Ice. Today we have an amazing episode planned out. All right, welcome to my podcast.
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, so what's your name?
Dr. Joe Clarino.
Nice to meet you. So, what business are you in?
Predominantly, I'm in the chiropractic business, but I've ventured into different realms of healthcare.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did your interest in chiropractic start?
So, married to my high school sweetheart. So, those of you out there, started dating when I was 15. So, some of you were probably like, no way, but that's like what it actually does happen. And there's 14 chiropractors in her family. And
Oh, wow.
I was crazy enough. I got done with college and I was working with my dad as an iron worker up in New Jersey, New York, up in the high buildings and stuff. And my father, I would get up every day at 4:30 in the morning, drive an hour and a half, 2 hours of work all day, drive an hour and a half, 2 hours home. And my dad was paying me like peanuts. And I kept complaining and complaining. I'm like, it's not fair. It's not fair. And he kept telling me, good, you don't like it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, good, quit. And I was like, quit? Why do you want me to quit? And he's like, because I don't want you doing this. I want you using your brain. And so he made it miserable for me so I didn't have to stay because he said to me, if you taste the money, you'll never leave. And he wanted me to do something else. With that came, my wife said, hey, I'm going to go to chiropractic college. Why don't you go? And I was like, I really don't want to go to school again. And she's like, well, you could do that with your dad or go to school. So I picked school.
Nice.
That's how I got here.
So, where are you located?
I'm in Sugar Hill, Georgia, just north of Atlanta.
So, how did you get there?
Went to school down in Atlanta for chiropractic college. And then me and my wife, one day we're driving around and we were always told, go where you're needed. Go where you're needed. Don't. So we found out that the three of the fastest growing counties in Georgia were right in this one area. We went and looked at it. One thing led to another. We drove by a house and my wife started to cry and she said, that's going to be our practice. And sure enough, that was our practice.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Pretty cool.
Yep. So when you're starting off, we were talking about it earlier, and it's hard making the right decisions sometimes. And the decisions can impact your life in a huge way. So how did you know how to make the right decisions?
It's a really good question. So when we started off, we didn't know anything about anything. Like when you don't know what you don't know, what happens is you'll run 100 miles an hour into a wall, and that's bad and good, right? The bad is because you could have probably avoided the wall if you knew better, or you could have jumped over a smaller wall. But we didn't know anything about anything. So we ran into this giant wall, and just from straight hustle, just determination, we would climb the wall, get over the wall, and then run 100 miles an hour, guess what? Into another wall. And when you do that enough in life and business, you start to figure out the walls. So that's kind of how I started making better decisions by consistently failing forward and failing on purpose of like, why are we doing this? What are we doing? How do I eliminate this huge struggle to get over the wall versus, doing it the easy way instead of the hard way.
So how long have you been in the chiropractic business?
I've been in business 26 years.
Oh, wow.
A couple of years older than you.
Yeah. And what do you think is the most important thing that you've learned along, in the 26 years?
God. This might be a 3-hour podcast. To give you a few of them, for and foremost, always find a mentor. Always find a mentor. Find someone who's doing what you like to do and who's doing it very successfully, and lean into them and ask them questions because they have been over those walls over and over again, and they're going to give you great insights. Number 2, nothing beats hustle, right? I don't care what you do. Hustle outlives everything. And number 3, in life, you'll learn to leverage 2 things, people or technology, and learning how to leverage those properly to grow your businesses is really, really important.
Yeah. That's a lot. And I know you must have learned a lot in 26 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a fun ride. It's been a challenging ride. There's been moments of defeat. There's been moments of success. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep going and try to figure it out.
Yeah, and so nowadays there's a lot of books. There's books for a bunch of different niches. So is there any book that has helped you out a lot or that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think if it's a small book, good small read. It's called Built to Sell. It was probably the first book that I really read that kind of changed my philosophy of what I was doing. And basically what it is, I'll give you the book in a nutshell, but I'm not trying to, you still need to read it because there's a lot of great details in it. But the idea is that if I said to you today, how do you want to sell your business? Like, what can you sell it for? If you don't understand what that is, then you have to define that and work backwards. So if you say, I want to sell my business for $1 million, give a number, right? Well, how do you get that evaluation? Why is that worth $1 million to somebody? And then how do other people look at that and view that? Like if you were to look at your audience and said, okay, hey, you have an electric bicycle and you say, I want to sell it for $1,000. Well, there's a value to that bicycle for some reason, whether you're selling it too cheap or you're selling it higher. Somebody is going to value that for some reason. Someone has to go to work. Someone has to go to school, right? Someone just wants to look cool. There's all these different reasons why you want it. And once you understand that, then you're able to build that value to it. But without it, you have no idea. And I think some people go in business and just start a business and do a business and not thinking about what is the exit plan? What do I do in case I want to sell it one day or hand it off to my family or whatever it is? But there's no thought around that. So that was the best book I've ever gotten.
Yeah. It's, a funny question I ask a lot of my people that come on my podcast. What was your first job?
My first job was working on the Seaside Boardwalk at a, like you go up and you put money down and the wheel spins and you're like, hey, give it a try, give it a try, give it a try. Yeah, so that was my first job. It was also the first job I got fired from.
Oh, why did you get fired?
So it's a good question. So I was hoping you asked that. So what happens is, this is a great lesson. Always cover your butt, right? And what happened was the manager who was maybe 5-8 years older than me, he was stealing every day from the game. And then he was stealing from everybody that was working. And then when the guy went around and figured out there was money missing, he blamed who? The new guy. Yeah. Not the guy he trusted. And the guy he trusted was stealing from him.
Oh, wow.
So always verify your money and check in what's going on.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's a crazy
story. And I got fired. I called my parents. I'm like, I got fired. They're like, why? Like, they said I stole. My mom and dad were like, you didn't steal. I don't steal. That's not my thing. And I was like, I know. He's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. So, and then I found out later that's what happened.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy.
So what is some advice that you'd give to somebody that's starting a business? Like, how would they start a business that they want to last forever?
Well, again, start with the end in mind. Like you see something that you want to emulate. So if there's a business that's doing successful, find out the pieces of the puzzle that they're doing. Is it technology-based? Is it people-based? Is it marketing? Is it well-funded? In other words, everybody wants to do a business, but everyone wants to do it on a shoestring. And oftentimes you need money to make money, right? So where do you get the money from? How do you get that capital? Do you have to pay the capital back, right? What are the terms? So looking at all those pieces, and once you have that and you have a roadmap of what you think you should be doing, then it's always going out and making sure you're finding mentors to tell you, hey, you're on the right track. Hey, you're on the wrong track. And what happens is by doing that, you have a goal here and you have people supporting you along the way. And what happens is, and the right amount of capital to keep the business running, always take your money, reinvest it, find out. Everybody wants to make money and pull it all out. Well, that's great, but that's not how it works, right? And you got to reinvest. And so eventually your business makes the money so you can take some capital out.
Yeah. Well, yep, that's true. So everybody's had failures, right? And I know that you've probably had some too. So how did you come back from the failure?
I've never had a failure. Am I kidding? No. The biggest failure I've ever had, which was, it really hurt, almost made us go bankrupt, was in 2005 and 06. Me and my wife I decided to build some townhomes. And I was developing land and building townhomes. And now remember, what did I say I was? I was a chiropractor. Yep. So I jumped out of my lane, completely out of my lane to do something very different that I didn't know, right? So it's a lesson there. Stay in your lane, right? Yeah. So I jumped out of my lane because everybody else was doing it. Everybody else was making money. And I was like, I can make money doing that. So I jumped the lane, got involved, built townhomes, and guess what happened? Giant recession. Exactly. So we lost about $400,000 cash, earned money, in a matter of a year and a half, and to the point where we were 2 months away from being bankrupt. So it was a no joke thing. And that really rattled me for years because I was afraid to make a decision after that. It's like once you burn your hand, you're like, ooh, everything burned my hand. You were scared. And it happens in business. When you get hurt like that, you get nervous. And I learned I had to overcome and learn and build my confidence back. And I did that by making small decisions well and consistently, and then trusting myself and making good decisions over and over again. And then also always asking my mentors, always leaning into people. I have a ton of network of friends that I lean into. If I have a question, I'll call 5, 6, 7 people and say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I get this global idea to make sure I'm on the right track. Yep.
And that's another thing that's really important in business is communication and talking with people and networking. So in a business is sometimes, or even in work in general, it's hard getting up in the morning and keep doing something over and over again. What pushes you? Like, what's the fire that makes you keep doing what you do?
Well, everybody has a carrot, right? It's a really good question. Everybody has a carrot, and for some, it's significant. Some of it's power. Some of it's money. Some of it's the idea of the growth. I think for me, I think it serves 2 principles, really maybe 3. There's a purpose behind what we do and why we do. We change people's lives, right? So ultimately, that's the highest thing. Number 2 is, you were surrounded by a craft and a philosophy that is to the core, right? So there's something very unique about that. But 3, I'm driven by money. Like I like to make cash. It's my reward. It's my carrot. So I like seeing that, feeling that, knowing that. It's not to go buy more stuff, but it's to know that I've achieved that, right? Yeah. So that's just the way my brain works. But a good friend of mine who you interviewed, I believe, Dr. Francis, always says, be careful how you define success because you'll spend your whole life chasing it. So you got to watch that fine line in there, but that's a great statement. So.
All right. And this is the last question I always ask.
Oh, this is good.
So if you say you woke up say you woke up tomorrow morning and everything was erased, you had nothing but $1,000. What would you do with it?
What would I do with $1,000? I'd probably play the lottery 1,000 times. No, I'm kidding. What I would do is try to find something that I could leverage. So find something that I know is worth $2,000 or $3,000 and buy it. Yep. And then take it and sell it and make $2,000, $3,000. And then find enough seed money and do that over and over again and make a really good, smart decision. And then the first thing I would do is invest in myself. So, you know what? I've always learned, invest in me. Bet money on yourself, because you bet money on everything else. Sometimes you're letting that be the control. When if you bet on you, you know what you can do and can't do. And it's on you at the end of the day. It's like wrestling. You go in that match and lose, you lost. No one else. There's no one else to blame except you. So that's kind of why I like always betting on me. So that's kind of how I think I would do that and leverage it.
That's awesome. Yep.
Well, man, thank you. This was killer.
Yep. Last question.
Oh, I like more questions. Take it on. Let's go.
So when you were playing football, I heard that you did something with your hair.
Yeah.
So man, what did you do with your hair and why did you do it?
Well, I've always been a big believer that being different is you're putting a stamp on you. I hate being like everybody else. Like if everybody was wearing white, I would wear pink. You know what I mean? Like I just don't like, it's just the way I think. Yeah. So I had a mohawk. And I had my number 44 out of hair. I would put the different symbols of the teams I was playing in the week. I'd have the guy cut out the hair of that. I had it colored. I had all kinds of hair. I mean, it was crazy. And then what happened, I started doing it, then the whole team started doing it.
Oh, wow.
Like the whole football team. So it was really cool. We all walk around mohawks and all that stuff. It was really cool. So it was fun, man. It was a good time. And but again, it shows I was being me and everybody else wanted to be different. Yeah. And it took a leader, it took a step to do it for everybody else to follow. And when you do that, people follow. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much for being on this episode. It was a great episode. I'm just so happy we did it.
Thank you, man. Rockstar. Go get them, guys.
All right. I'll see you guys in the next episode.